Hey, friends. It's Thursday, and I'm going live every Thursday this month and possibly beyond. And just to do a little AMA, ask me anything and chat with y'all about the stuff that is on your minds. So I want to spend some time addressing the questions. So I posted in my group, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can come over to the Service CEOs group, or get on my email list and get notified about these. So that you can put your questions in ahead of time if you are so inclined. So I'm going to take some questions that folks posted in my group and just talk about them. And the first and the main question that was asked was from Tara, and she wanted to know. So she said, something I run into again and again is identifying early bad clients and how to improve funneling, fine tuning instincts and gut feelings when it's worth educating a fellow business owner that they are a bad client. I love this topic. I do have a previous video on clients from hell and avoiding them. So I will find that and I will link to it in the description later on. But I actually just dodged this bullet yesterday. Like really, literally 5 minutes after I did that, I came and I saw this question. So I'm like, this is a great thing to talk about. So Tara's a web designer. So that's the context for her question. And I was a web developer. So I'm going to talk about some of the things, some of the red flags and the specific situation that I went through this week, and hopefully share some things that can help you avoid taking on clients who are just going to like suck your energy dry, suck your bank account dry, and make you hate your business. Like we've all been there and it sucks, right? So let me give you the example that I went through this week. So I found out that I was not featured, but I was put in a list of Black business owners in Portland Monthly, which is one of our local magazines. So I think they just did a bunch of research and rounded up a bunch of Black-owned businesses and listed them on their website. So I started getting these inquiries. And of course, I always ask people like, where did you find me? And it would say Portland Monthly. And that's how I found out. So I was like, oh, and good thing, because I went and they had spelled my business name wrong and they corrected it and it's fine. So the first thing I'm going to say is consider the source. Right? Where is this lead coming from? Is it coming from, a past client who has referred someone? Because that's definitely like a warm referral that comes with a lot of trust, right? If someone has given you a testimonial or has personally referred you because they've worked with you and they introduce someone to you and say, oh, this person needs your help, that is a very different picture than someone on the internet finds you, either Googles your website, finds you in a listing like that, and reaches out. And I definitely, so I've had 3 or 4 of these leads come from Portland Monthly versus, the leads that come from my warm audience or, my marketing people who've been through some of my content, and like it's a vast difference. And the pattern is the same every time. So I get this inquiry, they fill out my application form. The business seems like, has a really good mission, right? And they're a Black-owned business. They want to support other Black-owned businesses. That's all well and good, right? And they want a website. So that, to me, that's my first red flag for where I'm at right now, because I don't just make websites for people anymore, right? My focus and my flagship offer is around Content Bootcamp and around teaching business owners how to build their business foundations and how specifically to build their marketing and sales foundation using content, right? So already I'm like, okay, this person is asking for something that technically I do. I do have a back-end offer where, clients who come through my coaching program and then need tech help can then get access to our done for you service. And that's pretty much 90% of folks. That's the only way they can access that service. So that's the first red flag, is like, if someone's coming in and their first need is, oh, I want a website. The second flag is, how long have they been in business? Well, they're in the nascent phase of their business. They basically don't have any revenue. They don't have any processes. They certainly don't have any proven processes for generating revenue, but they want this website because they're starting to get attention from their market, and they want to have some place to send them. I'm like, okay. So the first thing is, I wrote back to this person and I said, hey, I have a great podcast episode all about websites and, my philosophy about them, how I go about creating them, pitfalls to avoid, all that stuff. Go listen to it before we talk. And I didn't hear back. I checked in, and I wasn't going to speak to this person until they listened and basically gave their feedback. So for me, that's a way, the response I get to that episode, one, it's gonna let them know like where I'm at and what I stand for. And their response is going to let me know like where they're at and what they stand for. So after following up one time, I got a response, and the response was, let me find it here. The response was, let's see. Just listen to your podcast. It's loaded with information on intent and approaches to website development. We're starting to receive interest from their market, and I just need a website which reflects the power that our company has to do our mission, right? So the key word there is just, right? That's the key word that I was like, oh, giant red flag. Let me run the other way, right? I just need a website. And the other thing is they're clearly sort of in the, what Chris calls the automation ambulance phase, right? They have waited until they have a pressing need to get something done really quickly. And maybe they have money to pay for that. They said they had the budget, but they're in a hurry, and there's an air of desperation around that, right? So that is also a giant red flag. And so in my sort of trademark style, I wrote back and I'm like, okay, cool. And then at the end of the message was, can we schedule a meeting? Right? Please advise. So to me, this is someone who, they're not familiar with me. They're not familiar with my work. They're not familiar with my philosophy. And the fact that they think, that I'm willing to just put up a website, right, says, oh, this is going to be a nightmare, most likely. And so I wrote back and I'm like, yeah, well, I just need a few raspberries planted in my backyard and some pavers put in, but the really skilled and trustworthy landscaper that we wanted to use is completely booked for spring because we didn't reach out sooner. Like I should have reached out in January, right? In order to get her committed to our project for March. Didn't do that. And so now we got to like sift through and find the people who are really, really good and trustworthy and are going to do an amazing job are probably not sitting around waiting for work. So, and the other thing is, in their industry, like they do something that is super complex and I have no idea about, right? And I'm like, what if somebody came to you and were like, oh, we just need this thing that costs like thousands and thousands of dollars and takes all of this technology and expertise to build. We just need this thing. Like that to me was the key. That's like, this person doesn't respect the process that's necessary to get a website that does what they claim they want it to do. So I don't want anything to do with it. So my response to that was to send them to the resources that I have for, I've got a lesson on how to just get a basic landing page up and the tools that I use for that. I've got a whole course on how to, DIY your own website. One of my friends just bought that course about 3 weeks ago and launched her website last week. So, I know it works for the right person. And chances are, like, they don't want to do that, right? But that's fine. It's not my problem, right? Like in my mind, they need to go waste some time, waste some money, suffer with the wrong people, in order to respect the process that actually gets you the outcome that you desire. And maybe they'll go find somebody to just put up a website and it'll be fine and like great for them, but I don't need to be part of that. And I basically was like, hey, if you get out of desperation mode and you're ready to build a solid foundation, you're welcome to re-inquire at that time. So this is the, years of experience to develop the instinct that says, oh, these are the signs that someone doesn't respect your process. So when they're in a rush, that's always a bad sign. When they are, when they're exhibiting signs that they don't respect your expertise, then that's always a bad sign. Oh, look, spam comments. That's cute, Joseph. Um, so yeah. And this is just something that you develop an instinct for when you make the wrong decision, you suffer through those projects, then you get those instincts. The other way that you can shortcut that is to have a community and have mentors around you and have coaches and people that you can go to and say, "Hey, I'm getting this inquiry, but I don't, it feels off. Like, what do you think?" And having that community of people. And if you're in business and you don't have a budget for support, basically for paying someone who is ahead of you to help you avoid those kinds of road bumps, then you need to look at your business model and you need to make sure that you are budgeting for that. Because if you don't have that, guarantee you are losing money either because you are going slower than you need to be going, or you're going to hit those road bumps that you could have avoided had you just had the support of a mentor, a coach, or community, or all three who could say, no, that's not the way you want to go, right? Because the minute you say no to that bad money, you're opening up space for something better and for the perfect client to come along. And I can honestly say, like, I enjoy all of my clients. Like, I love showing up to work every day, whether that's my weekly coaching calls with my group program or, one-on-ones with my done for you clients. Like, I have just an amazing time with all of my clients, and it took many, many years to get to that point. So hopefully those are some tips that are helpful for you. Okay. So the next question is about social media. So, where should we be investing our time for social media, if at all? And social media definitely can have its place, but you also don't have to be dependent on social media. And figuring out which platform to focus on is something that I work with people one on one when they come into the program to figure out, like, what's the platform that makes sense for you. I'm really actually really frustrated with social media, and I talk to a lot of my fellow business owners who are really frustrated because, you're fighting against the algorithm and the control that they have over whether someone is actually going to see your stuff. And so one of the things that I've been doing is really pivoting, investing my company's time and energy into social media and directing that time and energy into platforms that we can control. By that, I mean, a website that you own, an email list where you have direct connections and relationships with folks. Those are the two big ones. Some of the other things that we're focusing on is public relations and getting PR placements in publications. So those are the kinds of things that have a slower growth, but can have a bigger and longer term impact, and that you can control because you can get data from those efforts about how you are doing. When you're depending on social media and you're trying to figure out, like, how many people are clicking through from Instagram, like, they're showing you a little bit of the data, but they're not giving you all the data. So, part of the answer to the question about whether you should focus on social media has to do with your strategy. And a lot of people who ask this question don't actually have a strategy. They don't know a strategy. So if that's you, then that's also a sign, like, maybe you need to seek out mentorship. And if you're interested in working with us, the first step is just to go and apply. So you can go to carveldigital.com/apply, and you can sign up for one of our weekly information calls where you can come and learn about our program and how it works and whether it's a good fit for you. So that's one route that you could go. The thing about social media is that it's not an end in itself. Like, you should be using social media to direct people to properties that you own to get them on your email list, so that you can connect with them and you can build that relationship, because it takes 5 to 12 touches for the vast majority of your audience before they're going to buy. And my mentor, Chris Davis, actually just released today a brilliant podcast episode about this, about follow up and how many people don't do it or don't do it well, and how much money you're losing by not being able to follow up. So the answer to the social media question is, if you're focused on social media for the sake of social media and you're just posting on there and you don't have a path for people to go, so that they can actually get into your world and get into your sphere and be nurtured by you, then you should definitely get a strategy ASAP. And if you need help with that, then you can apply at this link. And we'll see if we can help you out with that. I can tell you that we're definitely de-emphasizing social media in terms of where we're putting our efforts. So I'll keep y'all posted on how that's going as the months go on. All right. And then the last question was about, what are some of your automations? So instead of talking about random automations, I want to talk about key automations that, especially if you're a service business owner, you should absolutely have. I was talking about follow-up, and the main reason that service providers are so poor at follow-up is because they're relying on manual processes to do it. Meaning somebody makes some kind of inquiry into your business, and then it's on you or someone on your team during work hours to see that and then manually follow up with them, which means there's a delay. You've got, maybe you have a hot lead, someone who's like ready to buy, and then you're taking 24, 48 hours or more to get back to them. That's plenty of time for that lead to go cold or buy from someone else. Excuse me. So you need to automate your response. Like when someone inquires into your business, which my mentor Chris calls this a capture point, right? When someone does something to take a step towards your business and you're gathering information from them, you need to have some sort of automated follow-up that immediately acknowledges what they did and then follows up with the next steps that they should take. So that's a key automation that every service business owner should have. And then the second thing after that is having some kind of long-term, medium-term, and long-term follow-up to nurture that lead specific to the action that they took or the information that they asked for. So for most of you, if you have nothing right now, or if you're getting people on your list and you're not communicating with them at all, the first thing you can do is just put a nurture series in place. And by that, I mean, you write, 3 to 5 emails that every person who gets on your list is going to be followed up with. And they're going to get those 3 to 5 emails that educates them about your solution, how it can help them, and then invites them to take the next step, which might just be buying, right? It might be getting on a call with you, whatever that journey is. So that's the key automation that I see that so many service business owners don't have. And it's actually not that complex to put in place. But if you're someone who's technically challenged, then you can hire it out. But you have to have that strategy first. And again, that's why, that's why I pivoted from web development to teaching service-based business owners content marketing, is because I was building websites for people who had no strategy in place, who didn't really understand how to market online. And getting a website, getting a website that's effective is not cheap. So it's much, much better to have a sales process in place, to have a marketing process in place, to have a nurture process in place, and then beef up your website, which is like the front door. So those are some of the key automations that I would put in place. So those are awesome questions. I hope this has been useful for you. Again, if you want to join us, if you want to be able to ask questions that I come on each week and just answer for you, then go ahead and come on over to the Service CEOs group, or get on our email list and get notified about the next ones of these. All right. So I hope you all found that helpful, and I will see you next time.